my dope Cadillac. Well, LSP had it all. They say he was the...
Good evening. Welcome again. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for a Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, and you at the other end of the broadcast table. There you are.
Sparkles McSparkly.
Sparkles, a little sparky. PLPC, Carla McCormick. How was it to, we didn't talk about this last evening, but we launched Facebook, thanks to the ace of the airwaves.
Oh, we're keeping it flying.
Ruben Wright. And so what was that like for you? Did your hair look good?
I didn't look. I just
No, you
can't do
didn't?
it. No,
Yeah,
no.
not yet.
But I apologize to all my family and friends out there for sending everybody I know an invitation to come like our Facebook page.
Yeah, please do. Please do that. We're now live on Facebook, Strategies for Living, and find us, like us, send requests to everybody you know. Let's make this thing grow. The only complaint that I have, Ruben, with you is we never saw you on camera.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I can fix that. Maybe.
Okay, all right. Because people, inquiring minds, want to know what does Ruben look like, right?
You want me to disappoint them, is what you're saying.
Well, I want people to see our dream team.
Got it.
You know,
Ooh, that is us. That is we.
And what a segue, because we're going to talk about that this evening. How do you work together without falling apart? We've got Shane Snow that is going to join us today as our life strategist. We're going to talk about his brand new book, Dream Teams, Working Together Without Falling Apart. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for a Living. We're presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families for 60 years now. Also brought to you by Milestones Counseling Center, by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Resilient House, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Red River Roofing. We will be back to meet Shane Snow as Strategies for Living launches with Ruben at the controls. We'll be back. If we're talking addiction prevention, education, and treatment in Shreveport-Bossier for 60 years, we're talking about CADA. Let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about getting your life back. The Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, CADA, has been helping individuals and families in Shreveport and Bossier City for 60 years now. CADA provides intensive residential treatment as well as outpatient services too. CADA treats women with children, pregnant women, adolescents, veterans. CADA has helped thousands and thousands of people in North Louisiana from just about every race and ethnic background, every socioeconomic level, across every class line. CADA has helped single mothers, attorneys, teachers, nurses, doctors, construction workers, musicians, you name it. Life is better on the other side of recovery. Call 222-8511 or www.cada.nwla.org.
There are few things in Louisiana more important than home. And due to the overwhelming response to our May promotion, your chance to save up to $50,000 on your new custom home has been extended through June, making it that much easier and affordable to build the home of your dreams. At Schumacher Homes, we've spent the past 25 years perfecting a process that ensures each custom home we build is not only built to last, but also built to meet your specific needs and specifications. That's the guarantee of a national brand with an understanding of local flavor. Today, we invite you to visit us at our model home and state-of-the-art design studio, where you can continue to save up to $50,000 on the home of your dreams, now through June 30th. Or visit us at schumacherhomes.com/Shreveport. Schumacher Homes, hospitality tested, Louisiana approved.
Everything to you. You say you want to start something new. and it's breaking my heart you're leaving.
And that's the question. Why? Why do so many partnerships and groups break down? And why do a select few break through, sometimes spectacularly? We're going to focus on that this evening with our life strategist. He is the author of Dream Teams, about working together without falling apart. Let's bring on into strategies. Let's welcome to Strategies for Living, Mr. Shane Snow. He is a science and business journalist. He's the co-founder of Contently, one of Inc.'s fastest-growing companies, and Cranes and Ad Age's best places to work in America. His writing has appeared in The New Yorker, Wired, The Washington Post, Fast Company, Time, and GQ. His first book, Smart Cuts, has made him highly sought after around the world as a speaker on innovation and lateral thinking. Welcome, Shane Snow, to Strategies. Mr. Snow, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Good to have you here. So, why do so many partnerships and groups? And Shane, I was thinking about today. I'm a marriage and family therapist, so I spend my day working with couples, and in between couples, I'm glancing at your book, and I know that you didn't write this, particularly as a marriage or family book, and yet I kept coming back to it today, saying, "Yeah, that applies, that applies, that applies."
I'm glad to hear that. I'm sort of fascinated by that. I only have one little bit in there about specifically about reasons that marriages break down, but
right.
A marriage is a collaboration. So much of what we do we don't think of as teamwork, but we ought to think of as teamwork.
Yeah, it's a partnership. It's teamwork, and that's what I mean. I know you didn't write much in here about it, but again, the principles, the concepts, apply whether we're talking a team of two or whether we're talking, a massive organizational team. So I think that's interesting.
And in family, there's this idea that we have that two people can add up to more than two. And in a family, sometimes that's literally true. But when we're talking about our ideas or our work together, usually that's not quite the way it goes. Usually we need more than one person because it's a big job to be done. It's, many hands make light work, but many hands don't become, better and better together. We slow down in our groups. We often fight. We have problems. The thing that gives us potential also makes life tricky and uncomfortable and tough, whether it's marriage we're talking about or work.
So we all know, Carla tells me all the time, she says, David, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
He's not telling the truth. The only thing I tell him is don't sing on the radio.
Oh, well, I can't do that. I won't do that to Shane today. But anyway, we all know that. But why do we fail, Shane? Why is it that we fail to keep the promise of collaboration?
So there's a couple of things, but it boils down to this lie that we've sort of been told our whole lives. And I remember my mother telling me this in order to get me to work together with my brother instead of trying to murder him when I was a little kid. And that's two heads are better than one.
Right.
And it turns out two heads are not better than one unless they're different from each other. If you have a group of people that all think the same, they're only going to be as smart as the smartest person. And all you're left with is, the awkwardness that often comes with trying to coordinate lots of people. But if you have a group of people who think differently than each other, then what you have is potential. But it's sort of like chemistry or baking. You're not going to make a cake if you have flour, and flour.
Right.
You're also not going to make a cake if you have flour, eggs, milk, and you don't mix them and you don't put them in the oven at the right temperature. And so we have a lot of these ideas around what it means to be a good partnership, what it means to collaborate, what it takes to actually add up to more, to make a cake instead of, a pile of gross flour milk. But a lot of what we've been taught is we conflate it with the wrong things, or there's nuances that we don't quite actually get. We sort of intuit what we probably ought to do to work together better, but we often, too often, don't actually study what it takes to really make the difference between a breakdown and a breakthrough. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do with this book, is actually take a microscope to all of the things that we think we know about collaboration and figure out what's right and what's wrong about that, and so that we can do it a little better. Because you're right, most of the time we have that promise, but it just feels like it's out of our grasp so often.
Why did you decide that this is a book that needed to be written?
So the simple answer would be that I found myself in a position where I was uncomfortable being a team leader. I'd started this company with a couple of friends, and before we knew it, we were hundreds of people, and my job had kind of changed from someone who does things to someone who helps other people do things. And the simple answer is I wanted to get better at that. But I think why I decided it needed to be a book, why I didn't just try and learn these things for myself, is I realized that you look around the world and you just see the pattern everywhere.
Right.
People who are different, they come together and they either make magic or they make chaos, or we fight each other. And it's so apparent right now in just in society and American culture right now that there's all of this potential we have because we do think different, and we have lots of people from lots of different parts of the world that that formed this country, and yet we have a lot of problems. So we have all this potential, and so I saw in that just a metaphor at a bigger scale of what I was seeing and fretting about in my own company, and I think it is the conversation that I think needs to happen, that I really hope happens in part because of this book, but why I felt the need to write about these things and to kind of show people these things, is because if we don't start thinking of ourselves as more of a team of human beings, then we have a lot of problems ahead of us. And if we can start thinking of ourselves more as a team, even our intellectual opponents, our rivals, our neighbors who we don't get along with, if we start seeing them as part of our team too and inviting their different opinions and their critiques, then we can make a lot of good happen, and universally, not just inside of our companies or our day-to-day lives, but at a much bigger scale. And I really believe that.
So the book it's about those dream teams and creative agencies, rap groups, social movements, even ragtag armies that somehow manage to pull off these amazing things together, far beyond what one individual could do. What I love is you've got history in here, you've got neuroscience in here, you've got psychology in here, and business, all wrapped together. There's the synergy, Carla. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts right there, right?
Isn't that exactly what we talked about last night? I mean, the science and everything all coming together.
Yeah, it's amazing, Shane. We were talking about quantum physics last night, and actually quantum physics and spirituality and how the two meld together. As Carla and I have done this show daily since February, one of the things that is kind of amazing are how many of you life strategists essentially are saying the same things. You may say it in a bit different verbiage, language, words, but so many of you are saying the same thing, and a lot of them, echo what Shane Snow is saying this evening. So I think that's cool. That's very cool.
I appreciate that. Well, there's nothing new under the sun, but it often feels that way when we talk about creativity, and literally at the neuroscience level, what creativity is connecting things that haven't been connected before. And inside of our own brains, it's when we have enough stuff in there from enough different places, and our brains somehow, whether we allow it to or we trigger it or something happens, we're distracted for a second, somehow makes a connection between those disparate things. And so when you talk about spirituality and physics, the first thing that I jump to is how Einstein played the violin and how he saw lessons in all of these things that had nothing to do with physics.
Yeah.
That actually helped him to have a little bit more cognitive diversity in his own brain and be more creative. And we can do that with each other. We can also do that in our own heads, and it all kind of boils down to this same thing. A molecule is made of different particles, and a human is made of all those molecules, and a family is made of all those humans, and so on and so forth.
Wouldn't you have loved to have met Einstein and sat down and talked? Well, one of my favorite photos is him on his sailboat. Yeah, and so that's kind of what you're saying. Get away. Get the creativity going. The other one that's my favorite one is him sticking his tongue out.
Yes, I love that.
and I mean that really is that really tells a story. Okay, so when we come back from break, let's begin to talk about some history. Let's begin to talk about some neuroscience, some psychology, business, tie it all together. I know you even draw on the history of law enforcement and the FBI, so we'll go all of those places as we continue here on Strategies for Living. We're talking with Shane Snow. He's our life strategist, talking about working together without falling apart. We're talking about dream teams. That's the name of his book. At your favorite bookseller right now. Shane Snow will be back with us in just a moment here on Strategies. Stay tuned.
Life's not far behind. She never lets me in, only tells me where she's been.
If you or someone you love is struggling to pay attention, Learning RX wants you to know there is an alternative.
It is so frustrating. Every night, Joshua has such a hard time reading and doing homework. He just can't pay attention long enough to get anything done.
Low attention span might be caused by weak cognitive skills, the same skills our brain uses to think, learn, pay attention, and perform.
I go to business meetings and realize I just can't pay attention. I feel like I've been hiding my problem for years.
At Learning RX, clients complete intense but fun mental exercises to target and train weak cognitive skills. We've helped over 95,000 students of every age learn easier, think faster, and perform better. Take a cognitive skills assessment and discover the root cause of your struggles with attention.
Learning RX. Call 797-8523 today for Learning RX in Shreveport, Bossier City. 797-8523.
Hi, I'm Dr. Katie Beach with Shreveport Bossier Family Dental Care. We are excited to announce we will now be providing Invisalign treatments at our office. Call the office today to get an appointment with me, a trained Invisalign provider that can treat a wide range of teeth straightening cases. Give us a call at 686-7470 and get started today.
The precise and comfortable statement refers to the predictability and comfort of Invisalign clear aligners versus other aligners made of off-the-shelf .30-inch material. Please note that, like most medical devices, Invisalign clear aligners require a prescription. In rare cases, an allergic reaction may occur.
Hear that? It's the sound of a family enjoying their new backyard resort from Blue Haven Pools. Your family's backyard vacation can be easier and more affordable than ever with Blue Haven. Their exclusive high-tech features automate care, save water, energy, and purify with virtually no chlorine. And their professional designers offer in-home estimates and virtual reality 3D tours of your dream pool design. For pre-season specials, call 318-746-7550 or visit bluehaven.com.
Every business needs great people, and a better way to find them. Something better than posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. ZipRecruiter knew there was a smarter way, so they built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job. In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And ZipRecruiter doesn't stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive, so you never miss a great match. Goodbye post and pray, hello ZipRecruiter. The smartest way to hire.
People from businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. We're so confident ZipRecruiter will get you better results than anywhere else. We'll let you try it free. That's right, free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
there doing a little dance, aren't you?
I'm chair dancing.
Yeah, chair dancing, huh? I like it. Here, I'll chair dance with you. Welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC Carla McCormick, and Shane Snow is our life strategist this evening. He's the author of Dream Teams, Working Together Without Falling Apart, and you'll find the book at your favorite bookseller out from Portfolio Penguin. And when did the book come out, Shane?
It actually came out on Tuesday.
Oh, wow. So it's still hot. I wondered why this was still warm. It's not boiling hot, but it's warm off the press here.
Yeah, it'll take another couple days to cool down. But,
yeah. What are you hearing so far? What are you hearing as it's broken out?
It's been really flattering, the reviews. It's my third book, and I think just as a writer, I've been hoping that I get better as I go along, and I feel much more confident about this one, both in terms of the material and the reporting, and actually the sentences too. So, it'll be another 50 years before I feel like I can match up to some of my heroes in writing, but the reviews have been great. In particular, people have loved the stories, which is my favorite part.
Absolutely, and I want to get into some of those. The chapter titles are intriguing in and of themselves. Buddy Cops and Mountaintops, Trouble in Shaolin. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Shaolin. The Magic Circle. Angelic Troublemakers. The Black Square. This one got my attention. Welcome to Pirate Land. And Oxytocin, a love story. Now, that hooked me right there.
Of course it did.
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't want oxytocin? And yeah. So, okay, this is a bit history. So, take us through some of the history of Dream Teams, Shane.
So what I wanted to do is take a look at incredible teams in history and what they had in common, and also take a look at common wisdom we have about collaboration, and look at it under the lens of new insights we have into psychology and neuroscience, and then kind of see what comes out of that. So it's sort of an adventure through science and history, and I wanted to start, and you'll probably notice that I start with smaller partnerships and I get bigger and bigger.
Right.
So I thought that buddy cops was a pretty interesting, even just in cinema. There's this trope we have with buddy cop movies that it always kind of has the same sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the best police partnerships and detectives actually have they kind of map to this pattern, which is the buddy cop movie. Usually it's two cops that don't want to work together for whatever reason because they're very different. One's a rule breaker, street smart. The other is, by the book and a little more uptight. Usually, there's different. Sometimes one cop is a dog, and sometimes it's the grandma. But usually it's a combination of two people who don't belong together.
Right.
And by something forces them to have to work together to overcome some overwhelming odds and solve the case. And at the end, what usually happens in the buddy cop movie is some version of the cop that's uptight and by the book has to break a rule in order to do the right thing, takes a page from the Street Smart Cop's book, and then the Street Smart Cop, instead of shooting the bad guy, he his gun hand gets shaky and he just puts him in handcuffs instead. He obeys the rule, and it's like they take a page from each other's book and together they become smarter and more clever, and it's a fun trope. But it actually is a great entree into, first of all, you see the story in history in some really amazing ways, but it's also a good entree into what the first thing that it takes to make a team smarter and more clever and more powerful than the sum of its parts is as you want people to have that dynamic where they're bringing different things to the table and they're actually mashing those things together in a sort of what's called cognitive friction, and out of that can unfold this sort of magic where the underdogs win. But you see it actually in all sorts of circumstances in history, in real law enforcement, real detectives doing the impossible. And so it tickled me that I could find some of these real stories that actually map to some of my favorite movies, Rush Hour and Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, and these classic buddy cop movies.
Yeah. Yeah. And where does neuroscience play into this?
So for this particular part, so there's a lot of neuroscience that that explains kind of how we behave with each other, and in this particular case, our brains are wired for a few things that were really helpful when we were surviving in small groups and tribes, and not so helpful today. And one of those things is we're wired to recognize people who are sort of members of our tribe. There's this thing called in-group and out-group psychology, and our brains will automatically see a new person and have to decide, for survival's sake, but have to decide, is this person safe? Is this someone I can turn my back on? Are they a member of my tribe?
Right.
And we take cues like, what do they look like? What do they sound like? How do they behave? Is this familiar or not? Or is this person a question mark that I need to be careful around, and I need to hesitate and watch my back? And this is basically in sort of the center part of our brain. There's the fear center and the center that sort of becomes aware of novelty, and this helps us sort of process these new people. And basically, what it does is it explains all of the isms, racism and xenophobia, and basically our brains have to say, this person who doesn't look like me or sound like me or isn't so familiar, we're going to decide to be wary of them. And this was useful when the people who didn't look like you might steal your woolly mammoth steak, but it's not very useful now when we realize we need people who don't look like us and who aren't like us if we want to make breakthrough progress. And so, fortunately, our brains have developed to the point that we can actually be aware of that. We can override that. But the natural instinct is still there because of that neuroscience. Now, you brought up oxytocin, a love story, which is one of the chapters in the book. Now, that's a little neurochemical that actually can help us to overcome this and to actually rewire our brains to have empathy for people who are not like us. It's also, sort of the love drug they like to call it. It's what helps us to care about people. And there's some things that can bring that on. But I'm fascinated by the way that science actually explains a lot of our behavior, rational or not, and that at a scientific level, all the stuff that leads to all the problems in the world actually makes sense. And fortunately, it also helps us to understand how we can get past those problems.
Absolutely. And so, basically, you, and this may not be super popular these days. We'll talk about the FBI, but you talk about the FBI. You talk about law enforcement and the FBI's history. And fortunately, the history of the FBI is a lot better than what's been going on here lately. But no matter what, whatever. How did the FBI leverage? Because obviously, it's a big organization, and they're diverse members, right? With a lot of different experiences, a lot of different perspectives. How is that leveraged to create a dream team, if you will?
So the FBI, their job is to solve crimes, right? And if you want to solve crimes, you need to be smart, you need to be clever, you need to look at them from all sorts of angles.
Right.
And for many, many years, the FBI had a problem that they didn't even realize they had, and it was a policy that J. Edgar Hoover had. And I actually unearthed this memo that he wrote and circulated. It was his defense for why the FBI would not allow women to be agents. And it was this crazy memo that's sort of in defense of why all the agents need to be men. And Hoover had, I think, good intentions with this. He wanted to solve crimes better, but he had the wrong conclusion and the wrong argument. He said in this memo that in order for the FBI to be a team of fearless problem solvers that the bad guys were afraid of and that could, do what it took, they had to limit the position to males. And he said, simply put, no one is intimidated by a woman. And first of all, that's not true.
No, but you've also got to put into context the time that he probably wrote that memo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it turns out that after he died, about 2 weeks later, they recruited their first group of women agents, and it turns out that the FBI got a lot smarter when it did this. One of the first agents that was hired I actually interviewed her, spent some time with her.
Oh.
Her name is Chris Young. And she ended up being the top #1 rated marksman in FBI history. And she ended up teaching the marksman course in the FBI Academy after she had a successful career. Super impressive woman. And she told me these stories about how they'd be working on a problem, and my favorite one with her is kind of a fun one. They had this mob boss they were trying to get a subpoena to, and a subpoena basically is a summons to come to court.
Right.
Now, if you're a mob boss, living in New Jersey in mob territory at the time, it's the 70s, you don't want to show up to court because A, you could go to jail, or B, someone could think that maybe you're going to say something you shouldn't, and then you're in trouble with the rest of the mob.
You get whacked.
And, exactly. You
Yeah.
end up with concrete shoes in the bottom of the Passaic River.
Right.
So they had to deliver this subpoena to request him to come to court, but it turns out you can't deliver a subpoena by gunpoint or by force because, it's a court summons. It's not an arrest. And so these mob bosses basically figured this out, and they just wouldn't let anyone that looked or smelled like a cop anywhere close to them. So they'd be at lunch, and anyone that tried to get close, they had bodyguards everywhere. You have to deliver it by hand. You can't just mail the subpoena, at least in those days. And so they had this group of FBI agents in the New York office. They're trying to figure out how do we get this subpoena to this guy so we can get him in court. And they went round and around with all these different plans. They tried to ambush him at lunch. They tried waiting outside his house. They tried, having people come to the door and pretend to be the mailman, or all these different plans. And they're like, we got to kick down the door and give him the subpoena, or we got to, we have to muscle our way past the guards. We have to intimidate him, do something. And they went round and round, and none of these plans would work. And then they finally called Chris Young in to the room, and they're like, hey, you're a rookie. We've been going around in circles around this. We're fresh out of ideas. Maybe you have a different idea. And she spoke up, and she said, well, I know that this guy's daughter is getting married in a couple weeks, so I have an idea. And basically what she did, it's like many great solutions to problems, sort of simple in retrospect, but no one saw this coming. The day of the mob boss's daughter's wedding, it sounds like like literally a movie.
Sounds like The Godfather to me.
Exactly. She shows up in a beautiful purple gown to the wedding, and walks out of the car. She has valet service drop her off. Walks out of the car. She does not look like an FBI agent. And this women are now new to the FBI, so the mob doesn't see this coming.
Right.
She walks past the guard, says hi to everyone, smiles. She's beautiful. She gets in line to shake hands with the family of the bride, and then she gets to the father of the bride, this mob boss, and hands him the subpoena, and takes him totally by surprise. And then she walks out and goes back. And it was such a simple solution to the problem that they just needed someone different to deliver the subpoena. And but also, no one thought of this as a solution because no one had put on a dress before. She's the only one who had ever worn a dress, and realized that would make the surprise to disguise in plain sight.
Well, maybe she was the only one that ever wore a dress. I mean, there's some stories about J. Edgar. Does that make you proud, Carla?
It makes me so. I told you that women are smarter.
There's no question about that. No question. We're talking with Shane Snow. We're talking about working together without falling apart. We're talking about dream teams this evening here on Strategies. More to come. You know, there are a lot of places that you can buy insurance, but there's only one, Jerry Anderson State Farm. Now, Jerry's here to help us manage the risk of everyday life, recover from the unexpected, and manage dreams. Jerry Anderson is at 4324 Parkway Drive in Bossier City. Auto insurance, home insurance, property, business insurance, life insurance. Call Jerry Anderson, 746-1209, or you can go to jerryanderson.com. I think you'll see doing business with Jerry makes a difference. Jerry's your neighbor. 746-1209, 4324 Parkway Drive in Bossier City. No matter where you are in life, Jerry Anderson, State Farm, is here to help. 4324 Parkway Drive in Bossier City, 746-1209, or jerryanderson.com. There's a lot of places to buy insurance, but there's only one, Jerry Anderson State Farm.
Men, are you tired of those daily blue enhancement pills that take days, weeks, or months to work, if they ever work at all? Listen up. Now you can take Red, the new natural male empowerment pill that works on demand. Even your partner will notice the difference the very first time you use it. To prove Red won't disappoint like the others, you're invited to participate in our nationwide I Take Red Partner Reaction Guarantee Trial. We're seeking participants for this nationwide trial, not only to prove it works, the very first time you try it. We guarantee your partner will also notice the difference. Forget those slow-acting blue pills and join those who proudly take Red. Over 50,000 pills have already been claimed and supplies are limited. So to ensure your participation in this free nationwide trial, you must call now.
Superior virility on demand. You only need to take Red once to see what all the fuss is about. Call immediately to participate in our free nationwide trial. Call 800-930-7620. 800-930-7620. Be one of thousands to proudly say, I take Red. 800-930-7620.
There are few things in Louisiana more important than home. And due to the overwhelming response to our May promotion, your chance to save up to $50,000 on your new custom home has been extended through June, making it that much easier and affordable to build the home of your dreams. At Schumacher Homes, we've spent the past 25 years perfecting a process that ensures each custom home we build is not only built to last, but also built to meet your specific needs and specifications. That's the guarantee of a national brand with an understanding of local flavor. Today, we invite you to visit us at our model home and state-of-the-art design studio, where you can continue to save up to $50,000 on the home of your dreams, now through June 30th. Or visit us at schumacherhomes.com/Shreveport. Schumacher Homes, hospitality tested, Louisiana approved.
Welcome back. Welcome back to 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living and marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC Carla McCormick with Shane Snow this evening, the author of Dream Teams, Working Together Without Falling Apart.
Hey, Shane. Thanks for being on the show. This is Carla.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm the other part of the Dream Team. Don't let him kid you. Hey, I have a question. Are dream teams made, or do they just happen by accident?
Usually they happen by accident, but I think that we can make dream teams. And you see people that manage to do the impossible over and over again. And I think that they tend to instinctually know the secret. But I do believe that most of the time when we've felt in our lives like we're part of a group that's just limitless, that we can do the impossible together, that is not usually by design. We can't quite explain what about it made it happen, but we want to hang on to that. But there are underlying principles that, there's kind of an equation that makes it so that we can do it more. And I think that I'm hoping that with this book and other research like it, that we can start to make this dream team thing happen more and more.
Well, you talk in the book, why did Daimler Chrysler, one of the biggest mergers of all time, flop? Why did that flop while Wu-Tang Clan succeeded? And then you talk about the one factor that can predict, and it can predict failed mergers, failed marriages, failed partnerships. I think that may be a very, very important thing for us to talk about.
I never thought the Wu-Tang Clan would be mentioned on this show. I just never did. I never did.
Leave it to Shane Snow.
I can name every member of the Wu-Tang Clan. I really can.
I'm impressed right there, see? I'm impressed.
All right. Well, you can fact check my my knowledge here.
Oh yeah, excellent.
So I really like this juxtaposition because we're talking about two mergers essentially. The Wu-Tang Clan was 9 rappers with very different styles coming together to try and make a rap group, which just sounds like it's not going to work.
Right.
and they ended up changing music history, becoming the most influential rap group of all time, as according to many magazines like Rolling Stone. And Daimler Chrysler had all it was sort of the opposite. It looked like the perfect marriage on paper, and yet it became the biggest kind of merger disaster of all time. It's the case study that they study in business school on bad mergers. And the reason that one of those mergers worked and the other didn't, it boils down to the same thing. And like you alluded to, it's also, if there's one thing that you can do to make the chance of your partnership or your marriage not falling apart, then it's this thing. So basically what happened is both of these groups had a lot of what's called cognitive diversity, what I alluded to before.
Right.
That, Daimler, you had the German car makers, really innovative, great, expensive machines like, the Mercedes-Benz. And they had low profit margins. It was hard to squeeze money out of these beautiful, innovative vehicles. And then you had Chrysler, which made, great family vehicles for great prices, and they had great profits. But they were not known for being innovative. And both these companies were threatened by Ford and Toyota, these other car companies. And they said, hey, if we put our heads together, we put our companies together, our weaknesses and our strengths can complement each other, and we can maybe make the greatest car company ever. Kind of sounds like the promise anytime a group of people form a partnership or some, two people get married. You think that together we're going to be better.
Right.
And a few years later, the new company was worth less than either company had been worth on its own before.
That's amazing.
And a lot of people lost their jobs and moved on to other jobs, and it was just so sad because it had so much potential. And they'd read research about how most mergers, we thought, fail because of culture clash, because the Germans and the Americans are not going to get along, and so they were worried about this. And so even though it was a good idea, they were worried about this culture clash kind of ruining the party. And what they did is they actually made the real mistake they made is they tiptoed around that culture clash so much that they devolved into something called organizational silence, which basically means you don't communicate about the important issues. And they didn't bring Germans over to live in Detroit. They didn't bring Americans over to live in Berlin. And they didn't mix these elements together. And in fact, the two CEOs of the companies would go weeks without talking to each other. They said, we wanted to not get in each other's way. But all that was left in that equation was the competition and the suspicion and all of the cultural conflict that just wasn't being spoken about. It's like when you and your significant other, someone's mad, but they won't tell you why. It's kind of the worst. You need to talk it through. Whereas the Wu-Tang Clan, these 9 guys, kind of alpha types that grew up in very hard situations, very rough circumstances in the projects of Staten Island and Brooklyn.
The rugged lands of Shaolin, as they called it.
Exactly. These guys they had a rough life. They grew up, in some pretty tough circumstances, and some of them were friends and cousins, and some of them were from rival gangs. They brought guns to the recording studio, and they had very different styles of music, of what they thought made good rap music. One was sort of more emotional, and one waxed really poetic, and one used cooking metaphors for some reason, and the guy was really into blaxploitation, and some of these guys were literally enemies. And so you think about combining that merger and trying to make a record together, and that just sounds like a recipe for disaster. But what they did is they actually leaned into those differences, and they orchestrated this kind of wonderful game where the leader of the group, the RZA, he said, all right, here's the deal. I'm going to make the song. I'm going to make the music, the beat, and then you have to come prepared with your best lyrics for this beat, and we're going to compete, and whoever wins the battle gets that part of the song that we're working on today.
Oh, wow.
And and what he said was, this guy was a philosopher. I love this guy so much. He said, when steel strikes steel, both blades get sharper. So he channeled these guys, their aggression and their differences in the competition into making the music better and making them all better musicians. And even though, if you Google Wu-Tang Clan beef, you'll see so many news articles of them having problems with each other. And they eventually learned to not be suspicious of each other, but they walked out on shows and, they had arguments and very public, and they sort of did this a little bit on purpose for publicity.
Right. Right.
The sort of very visible, we're fighting thing. But like any family, they always came back together, and they always say, we're brothers, we're family, we'll do anything for each other. They always came back to make more music because they realized that together they were going to elevate their craft. And so they walk out at each other, but they came back. And the thing with the marriages that you see in this sort of car company and this rap group is the biggest leading indicator that a marriage is going to fail is not arguing. Arguing is not pleasant, and sometimes it can get really unpleasant. But as long as you're still arguing, you're potentially making progress. The biggest leading indicator that the marriage is going to fail is when you stop talking. When you stop talking about the real issues.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I like that you do in the book. We've only got a couple minutes, really a minute and a half before break, but you use the example of the Wright brothers, and you use that to teach partners and groups how to fight with one another. I do that, one of the things that I say in the counseling room with couples all the time, because some people will come in and they'll say, well, we don't have a great relationship. We're fighting all the time. And sometimes I get strange looks when I say, it's not the fighting that's the problem. It's your failure to manage the fighting. It's your failure to control and manage the fighting. So at the end of it, it's not a win-lose. It can be win-win. And so anyway.
Yeah. Often progress is not about getting along. It's about not getting along well.
Absolutely. Dream teams working together without falling apart. Shane Snow, Own Strategies.
Things are gonna get easier. Ooh, child, things will get brighter.
When your child or grandchild is in trouble, you'll do almost anything to help, won't you? But who do you turn to? Where? Let me tell you about Milestones Counseling Center in Broadmoor, 3772 Yory Drive, and in North Shreveport at 4646 Hillary Huckabee Drive. Milestones is there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If your child or loved one is at risk of being placed in detention, psychiatric hospitalization, or taken from home, call 670-3159. Now, that's 670-3159 for Milestones Counseling. After assessment with an LPC, Milestone provides a team of professionals, all master's level, to work with your child or loved one in the home, at school, at play. We meet your child where they are. Family can be involved too. Milestones Counseling works to prevent and stop out-of-home placement. It's proven statewide this kind of help reduces out-of-home placement by 85%. Children 5 years and up.
If we're talking addiction prevention, education, and treatment in Shreveport-Bossier for 60 years, we're talking about CADA. Let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about getting your life back. The Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, CADA, has been helping individuals and families in Shreveport and Bossier City for 60 years now. CADA provides intensive residential treatment as well as outpatient services too. CADA treats women with children, pregnant women, adolescents, veterans. CADA has helped thousands and thousands of people in North Louisiana from just about every race and ethnic background, every socioeconomic level, across every class line. CADA has helped single mothers, attorneys, teachers, nurses, doctors, construction workers, musicians, you name it. Life is better on the other side of recovery. Call 222-8511 or www.cadanwla.org.
Down Home Meats in Stonewall makes hickory smoked sausage the old-fashioned way, by hand, with only the finest and freshest ingredients and no fillers. Down Home Meats, owned by the Chamberlain family since 1982, makes old-school smoked meat and sausage that's done right. Down Home smoked sausage so good it was featured on the Food Network show Barbecue America with Rick Brown. Next time you're shopping for groceries, grab a couple of packs of Down Home sausage. Sausage that's done right.
And welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC Carla McCormick with Mr. Shane Snow today. He's the author of a brand new book, Dream Teams, Working Together Without Falling Apart. You'll find it at your favorite bookseller right now, out from Portfolio Penguin. And what we're really talking about here, Shane, and let me see if I've got this. You're really talking about being open-minded, being a student, being curious. Have I got that right?
You do. So the formula in a nutshell of what makes a dream team is you have different people with cognitive diversity smashing together. You have friction from that, and then you have the open-mindedness or the intellectual humility to actually change because of it. And that's not easy, but I think if there was one skill that everyone in the world could get better at that would make everything better, it would be exactly that. The curiosity to actually explore and pay attention to things that you might dismiss out of, initially, or that might sound crazy, because that's often where genius lies.
Yeah.
And also the openness to respect someone else's viewpoint if you disagree, and not attach your own ego to being right about everything, so that you can change and get better. Because it's fine, if we can hold down an argument about something important, but if nobody is willing to budge, then where are we going? We're going nowhere.
Right.
I like what he just said, intellectual vulnerability. I can't say that. To me, that's the ability that a leader, a manager, a CEO has to be open to new ideas, new suggestions, and not always think that their ideas are the best. Am I right, Shane?
Yeah, and it's easier said than done. And also, we have this picture in our heads of what a leader should be. And I think this comes from, back in the day, and also sort of built into our brains too. In leaders, we think that a leader is supposed to be big and strong and stable. But what we actually need, and they recently did this poll of Fortune 500 CEOs where they said, what's the number one attribute that the next generation of CEOs needs as a leader? And it was creativity. But it turns out that the week before, 2 weeks before, there was another study done of who's most likely to be put into leadership. And creativity was actually inversely correlated with this. It was stability, stubbornness, stoicism, sort of not being, not changing in the face of adversity, which sounds good. But if that comes at the cost of flexibility and being able to change your mind and be creative and explore something new, then that's not good.
Good stuff, Shane. Good stuff. Dream teams, working together without falling apart. Shane Snow. I hope we get to visit again.
Yeah, you need to come back, because we need to talk about how you build a dream team.
Yeah,
Word is bond, and we need to talk more about the Wu-Tang Clan.
Please.
We've got
so much to say.
We've got an agenda right there, folks. Thank you for tuning into Strategies for Living. We have been brought to you by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping families and individuals for 60 years now. Also brought to you by Milestones Counseling Center, by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Resilient House, by Jacob's Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Red River Roofing. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who is it that you'd call? And what is it that you'd say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Shane Snow, for PLPC Carla McCormick, for Reuben Wright, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.
Breaking news and trending talk. This is 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. KEEL, Shreveport.